privileged to welcome back Rich Lowry. He, of course, is the editor of National Review and the author of the bestseller Lincoln Unbound. Hey, Rich, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. How's the book going?
It's going well, thanks.
Good.
Getting
Good.
a lot of nice attention. I appreciate you mentioning it.
No, it's my pleasure. Okay, boy, we were just talking before you came on about Marco Rubio's warning on immigration, and that if we don't pass comprehensive immigration reform, well, Obama, he's gonna sign an executive order granting amnesty to 11 or 12 illegal aliens. So we better do it. And I just can't believe anybody would take that philosophy. I mean, he gave an example that he did it with after the DREAM Act didn't pass. He then started deciding who he would deport and who not deport, and which part of the law he would enforce and not enforce. And he's done that with other laws right up to Obamacare here, and now with the drug sentencing. But to use that as a pretext to say, well, if we don't do it, he'll do it, so we might as well do it, instead of as a possible presidential candidate and leader of the Republican Party standing up and saying we won't tolerate it if he does it. It just makes me sick.
It's giving into blackmail, and the appropriate response to the administration's lawlessness isn't to say, okay, we'll let you force us into adopting what you want to adopt.
Crazy.
That's not the way the system is supposed to work. Now, the senator's argument is that, well, if he did it unilaterally, you just get the amnesty, whereas in this bill you get all sorts of other good security measures. Right. And the sad fact is a lot of the security measures won't happen because in the bill the amnesty, the initial legalization, happens before anything else, therefore creating no political incentive for the other side and various other players to actually go along and implement those security measures.
No, absolutely, and you wrote a piece. Actually, there was an editorial at National Review Online today by you about about why the House should not go to conference. We had Charles Schumer, and anytime Charles Schumer says anything positive about the Republicans or gives them advice on how they could win back the presidency, you run in the other direction. And he recently said, I think it was last week, we played the soundbite, that he's all right if the House wants to do it in piecemeal. He's all for it and go in a conference so that the Senate will get most of what they had passed in their bill. And he seems all pleased and all happy. And whenever that happens, you do have to run the other way. And you said no conference, don't do it.
Yeah, that's right. Now, at National Review, we support incremental measures, and we do think there are reforms we need to make to the immigration system. But the reason Schumer is all of a sudden changing his tune, I mean, just weeks or months ago, he was saying there's no way anything could pass that's not a comprehensive bill, is clearly because he foresees the possibility of just getting something out of the House that could go to a House-Senate conference where conservatives would lose control of the process, and you could get a version of the Gang of Eight bill into the House, and perhaps even on the House floor, where you'd have to have a vote, and it could pass with 50, 60 Republicans and almost all the Democrats, and that would be a nightmare scenario. So we're urging conservatives to try to extract from John Boehner a blood oath commitment that he'll oppose any conference committee.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as you point out, this is a lot different than Obamacare, which we'll get to in a second. And you wrote a piece on that yesterday. And Obamacare, the debate basically right now is, do we defund it or do the Republicans defund it and then risk a government shutdown? I'm not saying they will have shut down the government, but risk a government shutdown and then fight the publicity war over that. But here, with immigration reform, as you say in your piece at the end, Boehner has the power to just say no, and that'll be it. Yeah,
that's all he has to do. And we're, as we say in the editorial, we're not as tough on Boehner as some of our friends are on the right, because we realize he's in a tough circumstance. He only controls, half the legislative branch in a town dominated by Democrats, and some of these fiscal fights are just kind of inherently tilted against Republicans, like the fiscal cliff at the end of last year. But this is easy. All he has to do is say is no, and it's the right thing to say no, and we're going to keep pounding on him to say no.
Do you think he will say no?
I don't think he wants in his heart of hearts to say no. I think, he said after the 2012 election that we need to deal with this problem comprehensively. He said on Face the Nation a couple of weeks ago that it's just his role to be a facilitator, and he's not going to say what his position is.
Right, I remember that.
And,
yeah.
That's a key sign, because it's very easy if you oppose it just to say, yeah, I oppose it. You'd only want to kind of hide your view if you basically support it and have a conference that doesn't. So I'm very nervous that there are just a lot of powerful people, a lot of rich people who want this thing to happen and will try to do it by hook or crook.
Yeah. All right, we're talking to Rich Lowry, editor of National Review, author of Lincoln Unbound, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Let's move on to what you wrote about yesterday, what Obama can't admit. And, we hear all the negatives. Like today, Lisa Myers, NBC, did an extensive report on how businesses, all kinds of businesses, colleges, universities, unions are cutting hours. Union shops are cutting hours because of the fact that they don't want to pay the Obamacare. We know the story by now. And, of course, the White House comment on it was, oh, it's anecdotal. It's not really happening. Don't believe your lying eyes. Well, you basically asked the question starting your piece, do you believe the president or your lying insurance premium? Because he keeps telling us everything is going down, down, down.
Yeah. It's something he said from the very beginning when he was a presidential candidate. He said it during the debate over the bill, and he's still saying it now. He said it last week in his press conference that insurance is going to be much cheaper, basically, for everyone. And it's just not true. It may be cheaper for some people, particularly older and less healthy people, but young, healthy people are going to see their premiums go up, and we're seeing the reports all around the country. It's very complicated. It could depend sort of county by county in some cases. In a state like New York, you actually might not see much in the way of increases because New York already has these kind of regulations on insurance, but in places that don't have them yet, you can see the premiums go up, and that's just something the president can't admit, and it's just another way this bill is not what it was portrayed as being, and another way the implementation is not going the way it was advertised.
Well, where do you fall then? Having said that, and this is a major problem that you write about and address, but it's just one of many, many, many. And of course, we've seen the picking and choosing of what to implement and what to delay because it's not working, and they want people to start signing up in October. And of course, there's been all kinds of reports that the IT people are saying that it's not going to be secure when you do sign up and give your personal information. I mean, it's a disaster, train wreck, whatever you want to call it, waiting to happen. So can the Republicans, if they decide to unite somehow, can they say, we're not going to fund this part and that part, or maybe all of it, whatever, and we're not shutting the government down. We're saving the country from this monstrosity. And if the Democrats and President Obama insist on forcing this monstrosity upon us, then they're shutting the government down over it. I mean, could that possibly work?
I don't think so. One, because you're not going to have united Republicans. Latest is today Ron Johnson, who's no one's softy on fiscal matters on Obamacare. One of the reasons he got elected was he was so stalwart against it up there in Wisconsin. He says he doesn't support this strategy, and I think he's probably right about that. Republicans, it's very difficult for them to win shutdown fights because, one, people are kind of primed to believe Republicans are the ones who want to shut down government rather than Democrats, just given what Republicans believe. And two, you already have Republicans on the record, some of them saying, we're going to shut down the government to defund Obamacare. So if there is a shutdown, those quotes will be flagged all over the place, and it's just very unlikely that you're going to see Democrats so uniformly blame for a shutdown that they're going to buckle and say, okay, it's all over for our the initiative we're proudest of in the last 30 or 40 years. It's just never going to happen, unfortunately.
All right. So what this is going to result in then? I mean, in the 14 elections, I mean, in the the midterm elections, I'm sure most incumbent Republicans will win, but I'm sure there'll be some who will have challenges, and I'm sure there are some that might get voted out. But down the road, going into 2016. I just think the conservative base, is going to be extremely disappointed and frustrated, and just not come out, which is some of which we saw a lot of, with Romney. And it's going to be worse because here they're going to say, they're going to be a year or two into Obamacare already, and they're going to say, what good did it do me to have a Republican House or to vote for my Tea Party candidate, or hear the promises that we won't let Obamacare come? I mean, you got a base out there that's going to be severely disappointed.
Yeah, well, that would be if that's the attitude, and I really don't believe it will be. But if it is, that'd be extremely short-sighted, because the only way you're going to get rid of the law is you have a Republican House, Republican Senate, and a Republican President. And after next year, maybe we will.
Well, what could they do then?
Senate.
Just say no more Obamacare, and once it's in place for 2 years?
Then you can genuinely repeal it and have a president sign it. The problem is, the House has voted over and over again to repeal it, but it's never going to happen with the Democratic Senate
Well, that I
and,
know,
and a Democratic president. So it's not that the will's not there, and unfortunately, there's no magic bullet. There's no cute procedural fight that's going to allow you to get the Democrats to agree to defund it or repeal it. It's just not going to happen.
All right, Rich.
Sorry.
Interesting conversation. No,
I
mean, I still think they should take a stand, because if they don't take a stand on this, the biggest disaster waiting to hit this country in quite a while, then I don't know when they're going to take a stand. But anyway, I understand the other line of thought and your line of thought, and I appreciate you coming out. Look forward to the next time.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right,
That's
bye-bye.
Rich Lowry, ladies and gentlemen, editor of National Review.